Welcome to the Throne podcast. This is Dakota Kingry.
This is Dan Santana.
Welcome, Dan Santana. It's good to have you on your own podcast.
Hey, glad to be here.
Thank you guys for being here. We just wanted to remind you to like and subscribe, leave a review. I don't know where they would leave a review. Where do you leave a review?
On Apple Podcasts.
Okay, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It lets Apple know we're doing a good job.
Yeah.
We're doing our job well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, thank you guys for being here today. And we're going to get right into it with a question that might be a little controversial. It might sound a little strange, but I feel like it's an important question. And it's based off of our mission, which is Hebrews 4:16. And the question is, drum roll. The question is confidence a prerequisite to get grace and mercy? And so I thought of this question earlier this week, and I'm like, that sounds a little bit, wrong, you know?
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit sort of, I don't know what the word is, but it doesn't feel right when you hear it. Because a lot of times, to me, times when I've needed grace and mercy are the times furthest from when I am confident. Furthest from when I feel like being confident.
All right.
But I personally, I went and looked back at the verse, and the verses come boldly to the throne of grace to obtain mercy, find grace to help you in your time of need. But that word boldness in some translations also translates to confidence.
Right.
Come with confidence. And so you look at the definition of confidence, and it's to have a firm trust in something, or to firmly believe and rely on something that, it's to have faith, basically.
Yeah.
It's a synonym for faith.
Right.
And so Dan Santana forgot to take his headphones off, so praise God for that.
Yeah. They're off now.
Yeah. But so I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, those two things are so polar opposite, to need grace and mercy, but then to also be confident. And I realized something, at least for me personally, I'm like, the confidence is not coming with confidence in yourself, but it's coming with confidence knowing that there is grace and mercy to receive.
That's good.
And so we can come with confidence,
Right.
not that knowing that we're worthy of receiving it, but knowing that it's there for us to receive.
That's good.
And so, I just think we unpack this question a little bit because it sounds a little bit controversial,
It
right?
can be controversial.
But I think personally, to me, I think confidence is a prerequisite, and not confidence in yourself, but confidence knowing that the Father has grace and mercy for you, and it's readily available. I think it's cool. You look at the verse, and it says, come with confidence so that. So when it says come with confidence, the next two words are so that. So it's almost like it is a prerequisite.
Right.
Because if you don't come with confidence, you don't get the so that. If that makes sense.
Well, what's that definition of confidence again? Like, what
Therefore, come with confidence to
No, the definition of confidence, like the actual
it's
definition.
a firm trust.
A firm trust.
To rely on something.
Come with a firm trust.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If you replace that.
Yeah.
So a firm trust in what?
Yeah. I mean, we know, right?
Yes.
A firm trust in our Father, right? A firm trust in Jesus. The reason why we can go to the throne, we've talked about this before, is because of what Jesus did. And in the verses previous to 4:16, in 4:15 and 4:14, it talks about Jesus being our high priest. And because he was tested and tempted in every way, but without sin, he then took the position of our high priest, because he can sympathize with our weaknesses, but then understand how to overcome them.
That's it.
And so he sits at the right hand of the Father because he was tested in every way, yet without sin. And he was fully God and fully man. So he understands our weaknesses, and he understands why and where we need our grace and mercy.
Right.
And so I think the firm trust stems from that, right? Because we don't get grace and mercy from a God that's far off.
Yeah.
We don't get grace and mercy from a place that from a place that is Jesus knows why we need it. And so I think that gives me faith personally to say, okay, I can come to Jesus knowing that he understands what I'm dealing with,
Right.
because he's experienced it, and so that he can then allow me to get grace and mercy from the Father.
Now, here's a question for you, because you did mention about not having boldness or confidence necessarily, right?
Yeah.
Like what? So, what if you don't have? What if you're a person who struggles with confidence? How can you therefore come with confidence when you say, "Well, I don't even have this"?
I would ask the question, "Where's your confidence at? Where are you putting it?" Because it's not.
So you're
again,
saying
it's not a confidence when you. That's why that phrase, that question, is a little controversial, because immediately it's like, well, I'm not confident, but then no, the confidence is not. It's not put in you. You know, the confidence is in someone else. You know, it's in the Lord. It's where all confidence should go and comes from. And so it's like I personally, this is a good topic for us this week, because I am so not confident this week. And I'm like dealing with stuff left and right that's like just confidence killers.
Yeah.
And I've had to really, it's funny that this is the topic that we previously were like, we're going to talk about this, and this is going to be something we're going to highlight.
Yeah.
And then after we decide that, it's like I just get hit with like, okay, Dakota, like your confidence is going to take a beating. And so I've had to realize it's like my feelings and emotions are so fleeting.
Yeah.
And I think anyone who's listening to this right now can look back and say, I don't feel the same right now as I did yesterday.
Right.
Or last week, or even 5 minutes ago.
Right.
But that's why we put our confidence in the Lord, and that's why it says to come boldly with confidence, not in ourselves, not confidence of ourselves, that we are worthy of these things, or that, you know, because I think when you do that, when you look at that, then it's like, well, is the grace and mercy coming from you? Is it coming from yourself?
Clearly, no.
No. And if that was the case, then why would you need to serve a God?
Yeah.
You know, then what is good about God if you can give yourself grace and mercy?
Yeah.
You know? And so I think it's like you have to really ask yourself that question, okay, where is the confidence coming from? And who is it in? Because I have tested myself and I failed every time. And I know I can't put my confidence in myself.
Right.
And I think another thing is interesting is, you know, when looking at this verse, I looked up the definition of confidence, right? I also looked up the definition of boldness, because they're similar, they're interchangeable there. But what's interesting is one of the definitions of boldness is to do things boldly, right? But then semicolon, to take risks as well. And I think that is something that's really powerful too, is that speaks to the faith portion of this whole formula, right? Is that we can come with confidence, you know, but it's also a risk. I mean, it's not really a risk, because God always meets us where we're at, right?
Well, it feels like a risk.
But faith is a risk when it's compared to our emotions.
Yep.
You know,
the safety of doubt.
Yes.
There's a lot of safety in doubt.
Exactly. It's so counter. It's counteractive to what our emotions are actually feeling. Right. It's a risk to our emotions, not to our spirit, because we know, you know, who the Lord is, and we know He's always faithful.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a risk when you take it, and I think that's something that you could put confidence in, knowing that, one, your emotions are fleeting; they always change. And so, if taking a risk is counterintuitive to your emotions, you understand that that's actually the way that you should probably go.
Right.
And so then that is where your confidence should come from, is that your spirit knows, okay, like my spirit is one with your spirit. And so I know that I'll get grace and mercy at this place, and I can be confident in that because it's contrary to my flesh, you know?
Yes, that's good. Story time. Ready? Story time with Dan.
Here we go. Story time with Dan. We should make a graphic.
New segment. I think stories are important, right?
Yeah.
And part of this podcast is us talking about our lives and what we've gone through. I have a story. You have a story. And a lot of us, I believe, struggle with confidence. We struggle with boldness.
Yes.
And some of us don't. Some of us are born with just like, I have no struggle with it, right? But I've tended to see like creative people tend to be a little bit more like, they struggle a bit more with their confidence, right? When you're creative, you have this like thought because of what you do, you actually create things.
Yes.
And to be a creative person, you actually have to create things that people actually see or that people, right?
It's vulnerability.
Right. You have to let you're really showing yourself, right? Whether it's on a piece of paper, a song, whatever it is, right? You're showing who you are on the inside out to people and creating things, right? So I have been a creative person and for a long time, it's always been part of who I am, but there's also been that struggle of confidence as well. And boldness is really the biggest thing. And when I knew I wanted to be an artist and when I was young, right? My dad was a worship pastor. I used to see him lead all the time, play guitar, lead songs. And that was like, I just felt like that was me. You know, I got to learn the guitar from him and started writing songs at like 15, 16 years old and just developing that craft. But again, to be an artist, you have to be like step out of your bedroom, right? Where there's safety and you have to take a risk. And I was really struggling with that. You know, I played on worship youth teams and stuff, but as a okay, this is a song I wrote about a relationship or whatever, to sing that in front of people with just me and a microphone and an acoustic guitar was like, I can't do that.
Scary.
Super scary, right? And a lot of people know what I'm saying. And it's that first like step you have to take and say, okay, I have to get past this thing. So when I was 19, right when I turned 19, I'm like, God, I need boldness in my life. So I prayed for boldness. And many people that know me now, like, and have either been under my leadership or been with me in bands and whatever else, they see me as a bold person. Yeah, like they know me as a bold person.
You are.
But I wasn't always bold.
Right.
I wasn't always confident. Yeah. And there's still confidence struggles. I think we all still have that thing, right? Because we're still artists. Mm-hmm. But I have this boldness because I prayed for it. Yeah. And the Lord does say, ask and you will receive. And it's because I needed that in order to actually walk out what I was called to do. Right. So at that time, I got boldness, started playing in front of people. It was still like nerve-wracking. It was risky, right? But I was able to then see the other side, right? When you actually step and take a risk, you actually get to see the other side. It reminds me of the movie Indiana Jones, right? I think it was the last one, and The Last Crusade. I think that, right? Is that the last one?
I don't know which one's
No, there was a crystal skull, whatever. I'm saying the last of the trio.
I like that one. That's
okay, but it was the last of the trio. Yeah. And part of it is with Sean Connery in it, right? Yeah. James Bond. Yes. R.I.P.
Sean Connery.
Yes. So he was in it, and he had this whole notebook about things that he had over the span of his life that he had collected about. They're going to get the cup of Jesus, right? Yes. The cup of life.
What's it called? Wait, what's it called?
The cup of life.
No, I thought, is that not what's the Ark of the Covenant?
Well, no, that's the first one.
Okay.
Ark of the Covenant is the first one. Okay. This is the third one.
Sorry,
it's the cup.
I did mean it.
Right. So, but part of this was like, taking a step of faith, leap of faith, whatever it was called. And it was, there was this huge gap. They go to this, Indiana Jones goes to this huge gap and, looks, right? Yes. And it's like, well, there's nothing there. Like there's a huge gap and like all I see is basically rock and death, right? To get to the other side. And so it was leap of faith. And so literally he just had to put his foot out. Yeah. And just step and hit down.
I remember that scene.
Right. A lot of people remember that scene. And what was interesting about that is that, he had to, he read this thing in a book, which we get to read a lot of things in a book. Yeah. We talk about the Bible all the time. Yeah. And we see that, but he had to actually walk it out. Yeah. The faith had to be walked out. Yes. And so God empowered him, right? It's just like his father, Indiana Jones' father, empowered him by having this thing in a book. Yeah. Right? This is the instructions that you need to live by. Yeah. But he had to actually walk it out in real life. Like, okay, real life, I have to actually take a step. Yes. And, I look at that, and that to me was a reflection of my life and just saying I have to have this faith. And I love the definition of boldness, and confidence. Those are so good because when you put those together, you have to take a risk and trust.
Yes.
You have to take a risk and trust.
Yeah.
And so the issue that we have a lot of times is that we're putting our trust in something that our risk doesn't match.
Yeah.
But it's never really a risk to trust in God, in his word. It's never really a risk. It may seem like it, but just like Indiana Jones had to take that risk and trust that his father's notes were correct, we have to do the same thing. And so God empowered me with some boldness. And there's a story that you have about boldness, and it was a revelation that you got, and you did an IGTV earlier this year, I think, about it.
No, it was last year. Actually,
was it last year?
Yeah, dude, it was like October, I think, or something like that. It was almost a year ago.
Wow. What was that about?
Yeah, that was something powerful, and I actually thought about that video yesterday, because people still say to me, it's like that was a powerful revelation, and I'm like, so basically, I was studying this because I am not, I've always wanted boldness, and I've become more bold over the past few years, but I don't consider myself a bold. I consider myself bold in areas.
Okay, that's good.
But in some areas, I don't feel boldness, and I think that's something definitely to highlight, and it goes to what you said is like, these things are so contrary to how we actually feel. Boldness is not actually a feeling.
Right.
It's not emotion. Confidence is not an emotion. It's a step of faith.
Right.
And it's contrary to what looks, like you said, that Indiana Jones had to step out, and I'm sure the dude was scared. Right. Obviously, it's a movie, right? In the context of that being a real life scenario, he would be scared. He would be, doubtful. He would be fearful.
I mean, it's impending death.
It's impending death, right? And that's why the translation boldness is to take a risk.
Right.
And so for anyone out, I just want to say for anyone out there being like, well, I don't feel bold, and I don't feel confident. And it's like, it's not a confident, it's the power that the Spirit gives you.
Right.
And it's something that the feeling of boldness actually comes after you are bold. And the feeling of confidence actually comes after you're confident.
There you go.
And it's not it doesn't precede.
Right.
It's like, a lot of times people pray like, God, give me patience. And God actually gives you opportunities to be patient.
That's it.
And so I feel like the confidence and boldness are two things that are so, like, those are the spokespersons of that phrase. You want boldness. Okay, God's going to give you opportunity to be boldness.
Bold, right.
And he's going to give you the power to be bold.
Right.
But it's not going to feel, you're not going to feel like being bold.
Yes.
Because it's like, God doesn't always call us to do things. He actually, in fact, never calls us to do things when we feel like doing them. He calls us to do things before, like without the emotions and without the feelings. Like we're called to do things afraid.
Yeah.
Why? Because, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. So we're called to conquer fear, crush doubt, crush insecurities, crush death, all these things.
Right.
And it only comes through saying, okay, I don't feel confident, but I'm going to be confident because it's a trust.
Right.
You don't have all sides of the story when you need to trust something. Like it's just not how it works. In relationships, like trust is like trust is not like saying I have all the facts, so I know that I can trust you.
Right.
Trust is saying I don't have all the facts, but I'm going to trust you anyway. I'm going to rely on you anyway. I'm going to have a faith in you anyway that you're going to do the things that you say you're do or do the things that you're called to do. So I just wanted to say that. But my revelation on boldness, which I think is so powerful, and it's not my revelation, just FYI. It's from the Holy Spirit. But I was looking at boldness, and it was in a time where I was like feeling so not bold. And I was asking the Lord for a revelation. I was asking the Lord for boldness. And so I looked at this verse, and I looked at the verse, and then I looked at times in my life where I've been bold. Maybe when I moved here.
Right.
With nothing.
That took some boldness.
Took some boldness. And it takes boldness every day. When I moved here or when I went through the situation I went through and walked through different things or, there's been multiple times in my life where I've had to be bold, and keyword had to be. Sometimes it's like you have to be bold.
Yes.
But I looked at those times, and I looked at, for example, me sharing my testimony. That's a bold thing to do.
Yes.
Given what I've been through, given the fact that not really anyone knew what was going on with my life. And then for me to share my testimony and say, hey, this is what God is doing in my life through what I've walked through. That's a bold thing to share that with the world.
Right.
But what came through that was people being inspired. And I realized, so I looked at my life and I looked at this verse, this keyword boldness, and I realized, just like many other things in the kingdom of heaven, that there's a multiplication factor that happens on boldness. There's a just like many other traits in the Spirit.
Right.
There's this like multiplication that happens that when you're bold, that it inspires me to be bold.
Right.
And then when you're confident, it inspires me to be confident. So there's this multiplication principle in the kingdom of heaven that actually, it like multiplies tenfold. Like when you are bold in a relationship or in a conversation or in something, that it actually inspires boldness in me.
Right.
And so I realized that not only does God say to come boldly to the throne of grace to obtain mercy to help you in your time of need, I realized that there's actually a multiplication factor, that when you come boldly, it actually inspires other people to come boldly.
Right.
So you don't actually come boldly just for yourself and just for your grace and mercy, but it actually, when you come boldly, it actually blesses others with boldness.
That's good.
And so I realized this, and I'm like, okay, it sort of is like a responsibility now. Like, I have to be bold. If God's calling me to be bold, then I have to understand that that boldness is not just for me.
Yep.
That boldness is not just for my freedom and my grace and my mercy, but it actually can unlock the power of boldness in someone else to get their grace and their mercy. And I think you see that with a lot of different things. You see it with confidence. You see it with forgiveness. You see it with kindness. You see it with leadership.
Yeah.
That I think a mark of a good leader is how his followers lead. I think the mark of someone who leads people well and casts vision and has integrity and character is actually, those people actually take up the mantle of leadership as well, and they themselves go to lead.
Yep.
And it's this multiplication factor in the kingdom of God. It's like that these things, like with almost without any effort. And I think besides the effort that you have to take within yourself, right? And that's the thing of overcoming the fear.
Right.
Right? That it actually, like, there's a gift when you overcome fear. And the gift is not just for yourself to be more confident, but the gift is to show other people that they can overcome things as well. It's really simple when you think about it. But, I realized that I have to come boldly. And that's one of the reasons why it's a statement to come boldly, is because God wants us to inspire other people to come boldly.
Yes.
Because everyone needs grace and mercy. And if I can come boldly with what I've walked through, what I've been through, and what my life looks like, if I can come boldly, then it inspires other people to know that, hey, you can do the same. You can come boldly, regardless of what it looks like. And it just multiplies. It multiplies. It multiplies.
That's it.
And that's
good. And I can bring this back full circle, too, to my Indiana Jones reference, because what was great about that movie is that he took the step and the risk, right? And he realized, wait, there's a unseen platform there that looks just like everything else, but it's actually a pathway, right, to get across to the other side.
Yeah.
So when he gets across to the other side, he actually throws some rocks over it.
Oh, yes, I remember. So that other people can see
it.
Wow.
And I think that's something that we don't realize, that when we're bold, we're actually throwing rocks behind us and saying, no, I've walked the path that you're about to walk, but look.
Yes.
And yes, that doesn't take away from the risk and whatever, because people still have to take the risk and that, but that inspires people. And just like with me, to play in front of people was scary, right? And it's still scary for a lot of people. But what helped me was going and watching people play.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, they got the boldness to do it.
Yes.
And what also was great was talking to people after they played and them being like, yeah, I was afraid to do
The
this.
secret is that everyone's afraid.
Yes.
That's
I was
the
afraid.
secret. Everyone is scared to do it.
So there's two ways for boldness for me, boldness and confidence, is I love that thought of, you aren't going to be bold, but boldness comes after you just take the step of being bold, right? Like, oh, I was just bold, right? And so there's that step of action. But I also believe this. We have the access to confidence. We have the access to boldness. We have the access. And that's why I believe that, you can call me a bold person, but I guess my boldness isn't me. It's
Right.
I understand that I now have access to boldness.
Yes, that's good.
And so I think that me knowing that means that other people need to realize that, no, you have access to boldness.
Yes.
You may not, like, God gives us all the things that we need, and he also gives us things that we don't have because he has everything.
Mm-hmm.
So when, we go to follow him, we realize that, wait, my inheritance is boldness.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have access to this.
Wow.
And I just have to ask for it.
Yeah.
Right. But I also believe that a lot of times, just like healing, we have access to healing as well, but there takes faith for it. Just like when Jesus healed people, he always asked them, do you want to be healed? Right. And their faith was the thing that came before. It was the boldness. It was the risk.
Right.
Yes. I'm taking a risk and saying yes. And that's what opened the door. Right. But I also believe that, one of the things that we can do, and this is why I try to live my life as well, is to pray for something for someone else that we don't actually have.
Wow.
That's why, because that's actually a bold step, by the way.
That's a good one.
And that's saying, hey, I don't have boldness, but I'm going to pray that person has boldness.
I'm going to do that. That's a good
Right?
one. Yeah.
I don't have healing right now, but I'm going to pray for that person to have healing.
Wow.
In the Bible, Abraham and Sarah, that was one of the things where, in their story, where they were not able to conceive a baby. We know this story, right? They weren't able to conceive a baby. But before they actually did conceive, the Lord instructed them to pray for a couple that couldn't bear children as well.
That's powerful.
And the response is, well, why are we praying for them? We can't even. It's like saying, well, I don't have the power to do it. Why would I pray for someone else? But we start realizing, wait, the access to the power is the Lord.
Wow.
And the gateway was actually prayer. And their miracle, the miracle that they prayed for the other people, was actually their own miracle.
Mm.
And I just think that we need to, when we don't have boldness, we need to pray boldness in other people. When we don't have confidence, we need to pray confidence in other people. Yes, we have to walk in it, but even by praying confidence in other people is a bold thing. It's a risk.
It is.
It's a step. It's right there. It's like, that's actually boldness.
It crushes pride and selfishness.
And so that's another way to, yes, we have to do it, but sometimes it's like, well, I'll pray for somebody else. And we've talked about this, like mentorship and things that we've wanted, at least I've wanted growing up. I didn't have, but God has told me, be what you haven't received from others for others, right?
Wow.
And so I've kind of become that for you in your life. And been there like, hey, I didn't have it when I was your age, but I can give it to you because now I'm beyond that.
Right.
And it's the same thing, like be bold, right?
Yeah.
For others. Like you said, pray for boldness for others.
Yeah.
And even when you didn't have it, when you don't feel like you have it, right? Like even if you still feel like that, like, oh yeah, I don't have a mentor, I still don't have healing, I don't have whatever. It's like, no, but pray for it.
Yeah.
Be bold in that prayer, So that's a full circle look at, hey, your story's great. That revelation was great because there's a greater plan that God never has a one angle.
Right.
He doesn't have one angle. When he's doing something, there's layers beyond layers beyond layers and generations impacted by our faithfulness, by our stepping out, by our boldness, by our risk. And we realize that he's actually the one doing it, though. Our biggest risk in this life is saying, I'm going to partner with you doing it. Not that I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? It's to say, I'm going to receive the inheritance that I have.
Yes.
And I'm going to partner in this thing. And that's all God wants us to do. Do it together, right? And not in our own strength. He's like, I have the access to it. You just have to come with me.
Well, the greatest thing that we can give the Lord is our obedience.
Yeah.
Because think he owns it all. But what does he not have? He has given us free will.
Yeah.
For us to choose him. So what's the greatest gift that we can give him? Is our obedience.
That's it.
And our faithfulness and our yes to partner with him. I think that's so good.
And how can we do that? Because we saw Jesus do it.
Exactly.
We saw who is God walking the earth, obey.
Yes.
And do something even that he didn't feel like he wanted to.
Yeah.
When he went to the cross, God, take this from me.
Yeah.
Lord, Father, take this from me.
Right.
But if it's your will, let it be done.
And I think that's just it's just such a powerful thing. And I think even too, you look at, and we could go for this on, like we could go on this all day.
Yeah.
But even too, you look at, you touch on it a little bit, the come with confidence. I think when you were talking, I realized that actually can sometimes, you say, okay, I don't have confidence, but I need confidence. It's asking me to come boldly, but I'm coming boldly so I can get boldness.
Yes.
And I think at times like that can actually be a prophetic thing.
Yeah.
Where God's asking you to come with a thing that you don't have for the thing that you have in confidence that he will give it to you,
Okay.
And because it's like a lot of times God asks us to, like Jesus asked to feed the 5,000. And the disciples are like, with what food?
Right.
With what food? And he's like, give it to me, I'll bless it. Just give it to me, I will bless it. And then they fed the 5,000 men, not including the women and children, FYI. And then they had tons of food left over. And it's like, I think God, a lot of times, he's like, he asks us to do the thing, just like you said, pray for other people, the thing. He asks us to do the thing that we're asking for before we even have the ability to do it, So then it's reliance on him saying, okay, just walk with me,
Right.
Walk with me, like listen to me, spend time with me, understand that like I have everything that you need. So I have the inheritance, like you said, I have the inheritance of boldness. It's just, sometimes we need that prophetic step of faith to almost encourage ourselves,
For sure.
almost say like, okay, we can do this. It's not, I don't know,
Hebrews 4:16.
That's it.
That's where this is all stemming from. And, when, as we close this, we start looking at, what To the Throne is all about. And it is inspired literally by that verse, right?
Yeah.
And just know, everyone listening to this is that, we've had to walk out everything that God has told us to do. Every instruction.
We are right now.
Right. Like if God, gives me a life first, gives you a life first, we have to walk out our life first, and it has to be our life.
Yes.
And therefore there's going to be things for us that are going to challenge our boldness and our confidence.
Yeah.
And it only challenges it when we try to have confidence in our own ability.
Yeah.
You're saying, well, I don't have it. It's like, no, he does. And so just receive it. Right.
Yes.
So, read that verse, get that in you. That's the foundation of what To the Throne's all about. And, that it's a great question. The question you asked at the beginning, is it a prerequisite? I mean, it's like, it is, but he already has it for us.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So come with what he's going to give us.
He gives it to us as we walk towards it. And what's another translation that we love is the Amplified translation.
Yeah. I remember I read that and I said it to you.
Yes.
I said, look how good this is.
And the end, some of it is the same, but the end actually is what gets us.
Yeah.
And the end says, we will get grace and mercy in the exact moment that we need it, at the appointed time.
Yeah.
Not a moment too soon,
right?
Or not a moment too late, And it's like, I think we just have to trust and know that God has grace and mercy for us at all times. And it's an invitation is what it is. And I love that it's not like, it's not something that's timed, It's not something that's like, well, if you do this, or if you do this, if you act this way, it's something that's, it's a forever invitation,
right?
For us to always come and say, because we need grace and mercy every day.
That's it.
It's a forever invitation to say, you can come to my throne. You can come where I live in my presence to get what you need.
That's it.
And I'll give it to you at the exact moment that you need it.
So good.
So,
wow. Awesome. Well,
boom.
Hey, there you go. Thank you for joining this episode. We're so excited. And like Dakota said, like, follow, share. If this has been impacting you, let us know. DM,
Do all the
right?
stuff. Send us a DM.
DM, let us know.
Send us a letter.
If you've bought something that you like from us, which is cool too, because again, we talked about the things that we've kind of created and released. They're for statements. They're to have conversations about this, and inspire people.
Yeah.
Because we've been inspired by it, and so that's what we want to do. We also want to inspire that and let that, like you said, multiply. So, DM us, hit us up. We're so glad that you took the time to listen to this. Thank you guys for going to the throne with us.
Peace.
Later.